You're marrying a con man, and my wife's his mistress!
The wedding invitation sat on my desk for 3 days before I noticed the date was wrong. October 15th. My daughter's wedding was supposed to be October 22nd. I stared at the cream-colored cardstock, running my finger over the embossed letters. Sophia's name, Nolan's name, the mountain cabin address in Asheville where we'd be staying for 2 weeks before the ceremony. Helena walked into my home office, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Still working? We need to leave for the cabin in an hour. I held up the invitation. The date's wrong. She glanced at it, her expression shifting for just a second. Too quick, too practiced. Printer error, I already called them. The real ones went out with the correct date. But this was the proof copy. Elliot. Her voice carried that edge I'd learned to recognize over 22 years of marriage. Can we not start the vacation with you obsessing over details that don't matter? I folded the invitation and slipped it into my wallet. Details always mattered in my line of work. One wrong measurement, one miscalculated load bearing, and buildings collapsed. People died. Dad! Sophia burst through the front door, her voice echoing through the house. Wait until you see what Nolan surprised me with. She appeared in the doorway, practically glowing, holding up her left hand. The engagement ring caught the light, but that wasn't what made my stomach drop. It was the pregnancy test in her other hand. We're having a baby, she announced, tears streaming down her face. Can you believe it? A Christmas baby? Helena rushed to embrace her. I stayed frozen behind my desk, doing the math. Sophia and Nolan had been together 8 months. If she was having a Christmas baby, she'd gotten pregnant in March. But they'd only been dating since February. When did you find out? I managed to ask. This morning. I'm 8 weeks along. Oh, Dad, I'm so happy I could burst. 8 weeks. That put conception in mid-August, 3 weeks ago, not March. My structural engineer brain kicked in automatically, checking calculations, verifying timelines. Something didn't add up. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I stood and hugged her, inhaling her familiar vanilla perfume. I'm proud of you. But as I held my daughter, I watched Helena over her shoulder. My wife's face showed pure joy, but her eyes held something else. Something that made my chest tighten with a fear I couldn't name. The mountain cabin Helena had rented for our pre-wedding vacation was spectacular. Glass walls overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains, a stone fireplace that dominated the main room, and enough space for the 4 of us to spread out. Sophia and Nolan took the master suite upstairs. Helena and I settled into the guest room on the main floor. This must have cost a fortune, I said, setting our suitcases on the bed. Sophia only gets married once, Helena replied, unpacking her cosmetics with military precision. Besides, we can afford it now that the real estate market's recovering. True enough, Helena's brokerage had been struggling for years until recently. I'd been covering our mortgage and most household expenses on my drafting salary while her business rebuilt. The sacrifice had been worth it to see her confidence return. Nolan appeared in our doorway, a beer already in his hand at 2 p.m. Mr. Stryker, you've got to see this view from the deck. It's insane. I'll be right there. He lingered, watching Helena arrange her makeup bottles. Mrs. Stryker, thanks again for finding this place. It's perfect. Anything for my future son-in-law. She smiled at him in the mirror. Their eye contact lasted a beat too long. I followed Nolan outside, where Sophia was curled up on a lounge chair, reading a pregnancy book. The afternoon sun made her hair look like spun gold, just like her mother's had when we first met. Hard to believe she's going to be a mom, Nolan said, settling into the chair beside her. Hard to believe you're going to be a dad. I studied his profile. Clean-shaven, perfect teeth, the kind of confident smile that had probably opened every door he'd ever approached. You ready for that responsibility? More than ready. He reached over and took Sophia's hand. I've been thinking about this for months. Months. The words stuck in my head as I excused myself to unpack. If he'd been thinking about being a father for months, why had the pregnancy seemed to surprise him when Sophia announced it this morning? That night, I couldn't sleep. The unfamiliar sounds of the mountain kept me awake. Wind through pine trees, the distant call of an owl, the creak of settling timber. At 2 a.m., I gave up and padded to the kitchen for water. The main level was dark, except for the glow from the dying fire. I was filling my glass when I heard voices. Low murmurs from the living room. I eased toward the sound, my bare feet silent on the cool wood floor. Helena and Nolan stood by the fireplace. He was shirtless. She was in her silk robe. They were standing close, too close, their heads bent together like conspirators. "We have to be careful," Helena whispered, "especially now." "I know, but this is harder than I thought it would be." 2 weeks, then everything changes. He cupped her face in his hands. "What if he finds out?" "He won't. Elliot doesn't see what he doesn't want to see." Then Nolan kissed my wife. Soft at first, then deeper. Her hand slid up his bare chest. 22 years of marriage. And I'd never seen Helena kiss anyone the way she kissed my daughter's fiancé. I backed away, my heart hammering, made it to our bedroom without a sound. Lay in the dark, listening to Helena slip back into bed 30 minutes later, her breathing carefully controlled to fake sleep. In the morning, everything seemed normal. Helena made coffee. Nolan helped Sophia with her prenatal vitamins. We all sat around the kitchen island discussing wedding plans like nothing had happened, but I knew what I'd seen, and I was going to figure out exactly what it meant. The next 3 days played out like a carefully choreographed dance. Helena and Nolan never seemed to be alone together when I was around, but I started noticing the small things, how his hand would brush hers when passing the salt, the way she'd laugh just a little too loud at his jokes, how they both fell silent when I entered a room. Sophia remained oblivious, floating through the days on a cloud of wedding excitement and pregnancy hormones. She spent hours on the phone with the florist, the caterer, the band. Every detail had to be perfect for what she called the most important day of my life. If only she knew. I drove into Asheville on Thursday, ostensibly to pick up the corrected wedding invitations. Instead, I went to the courthouse and filed a request for divorce records. Not my own, yet. I wanted to see if Nolan had been married before. The clerk was helpful, running his name through the system while I waited. "Nothing comes up," she said. "Clean record." "What about civil suits, property disputes?" She typed for a few more minutes. "There's a judgment here from 2019. Breach of contract. He owed someone named Marcus Webb $40,000. I made a mental note. Marcus Webb. Then I drove to the real estate office where Helena claimed to have found the cabin rental. "Mountain cabin on Sunset Ridge?" The receptionist shook her head. "We don't handle vacation rentals. That's more of an Airbnb situation." Strike two. Helena had lied about how she'd found the place. On the drive back, my phone rang. "Mr. Stryker? This is Margaret Stryker, Elliot's mother?" "Mom?" I pulled over. She never called my cell phone. "I'm coming to visit tomorrow. I know you said the cabin was full, but I can't miss seeing my granddaughter before her wedding." "Of course. We'll make room." "There's something else." Her voice dropped. "I've been praying about this, and the Lord keeps putting it on my heart. Elliot, sometimes the truth does more damage than good, especially when innocent babies are involved." The hair on my neck stood up. "What are you talking about?" "Just remember that forgiveness is divine. Whatever you're facing, whatever you've learned, think about that child Sophia's carrying. Think about what's best for everyone." The line went dead. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the mountains, wondering how my 70-year-old mother knew something was wrong when I hadn't told anyone. That evening, I announced her visit over dinner. Sophia clapped her hands with delight. Helena smiled, but I caught the quick glance she exchanged with Nolan. "Where will she sleep?" Helena asked. "I'll take the couch," I said. "She can have our room." "That's not necessary. I can sleep on the couch," Nolan offered. "I insist." I looked directly at him. "I want to be close to the main living area anyway. Sometimes I have trouble sleeping in new places." The message was clear. I'd be watching. After Sophia and Nolan went upstairs, Helena cornered me in the kitchen. "What's this really about?" "What do you mean?" "The sudden interest in sleeping arrangements. The way you've been watching everyone." "What's going on, Elliot?" I dried the last plate, taking my time. "Just want to make sure everything goes smoothly for Sophia's wedding." "Since when do you care about wedding details?" "Since I realized how much this means to her." I met her eyes. "And how much damage the wrong person could do to her happiness." Helena held my gaze for a long moment, then shrugged. "You're being paranoid, but suit yourself." But I wasn't being paranoid. I was being systematic. And tomorrow, when my mother arrived, I'd have an ally who understood that some secrets were worth keeping. and others needed to be exposed. Mom arrived Friday morning in her ancient Honda Civic, looking every inch the proper church lady in her navy dress and sensible shoes. She'd brought homemade cookies, a baby blanket she'd been knitting, and that particular expression that meant she was ready to meddle in my life for my own good. Sophia practically bounced off the walls, showing her around the cabin, chattering about wedding flowers and baby names. Mom listened with infinite patience, the way she had when Sophia was 5, and explaining why her stuffed elephant needed his own place setting at dinner. "You look tired, sweetheart," Mom told me when we had a moment alone on the deck. "Haven't been sleeping well?" "I imagine not." She rocked in her chair, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. "When did you find out?" I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "Find out what?" "About Helena and that boy." The blood drained from my face. "How do you—" "I've been married, Elliot. I know what guilt looks like on a woman's face. Helena hasn't met my eyes once since I got here." She paused in her knitting. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet. That baby Sophia's carrying changes everything. You understand that, don't you? Whatever you decide affects 3 generations now." I watched through the glass doors as Helena and Nolan prepared lunch together, their movements synchronized like dancers who'd practiced the routine many times before. "Did Dad ever cheat on you?" Mom's needles stopped clicking. "Once, when you were 12. I never knew. That was the point. I chose to forgive him and keep the family together. Best decision I ever made." "Your father was a good man who made one terrible mistake." "This doesn't feel like one mistake, Mom." "No," she agreed quietly. "It doesn't. But that baby didn't choose its circumstances. Neither did Sophia." That afternoon, while the women went shopping for last-minute wedding items, Nolan and I were left alone to watch college football. He cracked open his 3rd beer before halftime. "Can I ask you something, mister?" "Stryker?" "Sure. What was it like, meeting Helena, falling in love, starting a family? Sometimes I feel like I'm rushing into all this." I muted the TV. "Having second thoughts?" "Not exactly. It's just—" He took a long drink. "Marriage is permanent, you know? Till death do us part and all that." "It doesn't have to be permanent." He looked at me sharply. "What do you mean?" "Divorce is always an option. If you're not ready, if you realize you've made a mistake, if you find out the person you married isn't who you thought they were." I leaned back in my chair. "Better to end it clean than drag it out for years. But what about kids? Kids survive divorce. They don't survive living in a house full of lies and resentment." Nolan finished his beer in one long swallow. "You ever think about divorcing Mrs. Stryker?" The question hung in the air between us. I could feel him watching me, measuring my reaction. "Why would you ask that?" "Just seems like maybe you two aren't as happy as you used to be." She mentioned you've been distant lately. So they'd been talking about me, planning around me. "Marriage has ups and downs," I said carefully. 22 years teaches you to weather the storms." "Right, of course." He relaxed back into the couch. "I'm probably just nervous, wedding jitters." "Probably, but when the women returned, I noticed how quickly Nolan's mood improved around Helena, how his whole body turned toward her when she entered a room, how Sophia became invisible whenever her mother was present. That night, I lay on the couch listening to the house settle around me. At midnight, I heard soft footsteps on the stairs, then whispers from the kitchen. I eased off the couch and crept close enough to hear. "We can't keep doing this," Nolan was saying. "2 more days," Helena replied. "After the wedding, we'll figure it out." "What if he suspects?" "Let me worry about Elliot. You just focus on getting through Sunday." "What about Sophia?" A long pause. "What about her?" "Helena, she's going to be destroyed. She's stronger than you think. And she'll have the baby to focus on." "That's cold, even for you." "It's practical. Children need stability, financial security. I can give her that better than you can." I heard the refrigerator open and close, footsteps moving apart, then silence. I stayed awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, understanding finally that this wasn't just an affair. This was a plan, and tomorrow, I was going to start making a plan of my own. Saturday morning brought chaos. The wedding was the next day, and Sophia's stress level had reached critical mass. The flowers weren't the right shade of peach. The band had questions about the playlist. The photographer needed to confirm arrival times. I volunteered for every errand, ostensibly to help my daughter, actually to make phone calls. First call, Miles, my brother. We hadn't spoken in 6 months, not since he'd asked to borrow $5,000 to cover some business expenses I knew better than to ask about. He answered on the first ring. Elliot? Christ, is someone dead? I need your help. With what? Can't talk over the phone. Can you be in Asheville by tonight? Asheville? What the hell are you doing in... Never mind. Yeah, I can be there. This better not be about money, because I'm still working on paying you back from last time. It's not about money, yet. I gave him the address and hung up. Second call, Marcus Webb, the man who'd won a judgment against Nolan in 2019. It took some digging to find his number, but $40,000 was the kind of debt that left lasting impressions. Marcus Webb. Mr. Webb, my name is Elliot Stryker. I'm calling about Nolan Reed's. A pause. What about him? He's marrying my daughter tomorrow. I'm doing some background checking. Your daughter? Jesus, I feel sorry for her. That guy's a piece of work. Can you tell me about the judgment? He was supposed to renovate my restaurant. Took $30,000 up front, bought materials with another $10,000 I loaned him, then disappeared halfway through the job. Left me with a gutted kitchen and a pile of useless supplies. Did he ever pay you back? Not a dime. I heard he moved to North Carolina and changed jobs. Good luck getting anything out of him. I thanked him and hung up. So Nolan was a con man. That explained how he'd charmed his way into our family. Third call, a private investigator I'd used for insurance fraud cases at work. I need background on someone, and I need it fast. By noon, I had more information than I wanted. Nolan had left a trail of financial damage across 3 states. Unpaid debts, broken contracts, and at least 2 other women who'd claimed he'd gotten them pregnant and then vanished. But Helena already knew all this. Had to. Which meant she was either incredibly naive, or she was using him just as much as he was using her. Miles arrived at 6 p.m., looking like he'd driven straight through from wherever he'd been living lately. Tattoos covered both arms. His hair was longer than mine, and he smelled like cigarettes and motor oil. Mom took one look at him and retreated to the deck with her knitting. So what's the crisis? He asked after I'd gotten him a beer and filled him in on the basic situation. Helena's cheating with Nolan. I saw them together. The guy who's marrying Sophia? Tomorrow? Miles whistled low. That's screwed up even for you, brother. I need to stop this wedding. Why? Let the little princess figure it out on her own. Not your problem. She's pregnant. That sobered him. Miles might be a criminal and a deadbeat, but he had a soft spot for kids. Always had. Okay, what do you need? I pulled out my laptop and showed him the financial records I'd been compiling. I want to transfer our assets somewhere Helena can't touch them. Set up accounts she doesn't know about. Can you help with that? Can I help? Elliot, you're talking to a guy who once convinced 3 banks I was the same person with different social security numbers. Of course I can help. We worked until midnight, moving money through a series of shell companies and offshore accounts Miles had used for his various schemes. By morning, Helena would discover that most of our joint assets had vanished. What's the plan after that? Miles asked. I'm going to destroy them both, publicly, at the wedding. What about Sophia? Sophia deserves to know who she's marrying, even if it breaks her heart. Miles leaned back in his chair. You sure about this? Because once you blow this up, there's no putting it back together. I thought about my daughter upstairs, planning her perfect wedding to a con man who was sleeping with her mother. About the baby she was carrying, who deserved better than to grow up in a house built on lies. I'm sure... All right then, Miles grinned. Let's burn it all down. Sunday morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect October day that made you believe in fresh starts and happy endings, the kind of day that would make the betrayal I was about to expose even more devastating. Sophia was up at dawn, her excitement so pure it almost made me reconsider. She floated through the house in her bathrobe, humming wedding songs and checking details off her endless list. The baby was making her glow in that way pregnant women talked about, and for a moment she looked exactly like Helena had 23 years ago. Dad, can you help me move the guest book table? She asked, balancing her coffee cup and her phone while trying to direct traffic for the setup crew. Of course, sweetheart. The wedding was being held in the cabin's backyard, where a natural clearing provided the perfect cathedral under the towering pines. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an arch of flowers at the front, tiny lights strung through the trees. It looked like something from a magazine. Helena emerged from our bedroom in full mother of the bride mode, directing the caterers and florists with the efficiency of a military commander. She'd chosen a navy dress that hugged her figure and made her look 10 years younger. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. She looked like a woman who had no idea her world was about to end. "The photographer should be here soon," she told me, checking her watch. "Can you make sure Nolan's ready?" "We want to start the portraits early." The photographer. I'd forgotten about him in the chaos of the last 2 days, but Miles hadn't. When I found him smoking behind the cabin, he had a laptop bag slung over his shoulder and a satisfied smile on his face. "All set," he said. "Jimmy owes me a favor from way back. He used to be a cop before he got into photography. He knows how to handle complicated situations." "What kind of complicated?" "The kind where the father of the bride needs documentation of what he's about to do. Legal protection, if you know what I mean." I didn't, but I trusted Miles to handle the details. He'd always been better at the criminal side of things. Mom appeared at my elbow, looking more nervous than I'd seen her in years. "It's not too late to change your mind, Elliot." "Yes, it is. That girl in there is about to have her heart broken on her wedding day, in front of everyone she loves." "By me? Or by the people who've been lying to her for months?" Mom sighed. "I'm going to pray for all of you." "Good. We're going to need it." By 11 a.m., the guests were arriving. Friends from college, co-workers, extended family I hadn't seen in years. Everyone dressed in their finest, carrying gifts and smiles and expectations of joy. I greeted them at the door, shaking hands and accepting congratulations like any proud father of the bride. Inside, I was counting down minutes. The ceremony was scheduled for noon. At 11:45, I found Helena in the master bathroom, putting the finishing touches on her makeup. "You look beautiful," I said. She startled, then smiled at me in the mirror. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." "Helena?" "Yes?" "I want you to know that I loved you. For 22 years, I really loved you." Her hand stilled on her lipstick. "Loved? Past tense?" "Figure of speech." I kissed her cheek, tasting the powder and perfume that had once driven me crazy with desire. "I'll see you down there." I left her staring at her reflection, probably wondering if she'd heard what she thought she'd heard. Outside, the guests were taking their seats. Nolan stood at the altar with his best man, looking nervous but happy. He'd chosen a charcoal gray suit that made him look older, more distinguished, more worthy of my daughter. Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs in her wedding dress, and for a moment the world stopped. She was radiant, beautiful, perfect. And in 30 minutes, she was going to hate me for the rest of her life, but she was also going to know the truth. The music started. Helena walked down the aisle first, nodding regally to the guests, taking her place in the front row. Then came Sophia, her arm linked through mine, practically vibrating with happiness. "I love you, Dad," she whispered as we reached the altar. "I love you too, sweetheart." "More than you'll ever know." I placed her hand in Nolan's, looked him straight in the eye, and took my place beside my wife. The minister began speaking about love and commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. "And I waited for my moment to destroy all of it. If anyone has reason these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." The minister's words hung in the air like a challenge, the traditional pause that no one expected to be filled. Sophia and Nolan smiled at each other, her eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. I stood up. "I do." The gasps from the congregation hit like a wave. Sophia's face went white. Nolan's jaw dropped. Helena grabbed my arm, her nails digging through my suit jacket. "Elliot, what are you doing?" she hissed. I gently removed her hand. "What I should have done days ago." "Dad?" Sophia's voice was small, confused, like a child who just discovered there was no Santa Claus. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. But you need to know who you're marrying." I nodded to Miles, who was standing near the AV equipment the photographer had set up. The large screen behind the altar flickered to life. The first image was a financial record. Nolan's debts, his pattern of fraud, the judgment from Marcus Webb. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people squinted to read the documents. "Nolan Reeds has stolen over $100,000 from at least 6 people," I announced. my voice carrying clearly in the mountain air. He's facing criminal charges in 2 states. He proposed to my daughter 3 weeks after meeting her, and he's been using her to hide assets and establish residency in North Carolina. That's not true, Nolan protested, but his voice cracked. It gets worse. The next image filled the screen. Security footage from inside the cabin, time-stamped 3 days ago. Nolan and Helena in the kitchen, the kiss, her hands on his chest, the intimate whispers. Sophia's bouquet hit the ground. No, she breathed. No, no, no! Helena bolted from her chair. Turn it off right now! But there was more footage, multiple encounters over the past week. Helena and Nolan in the living room, on the deck, in the kitchen again. Each timestamp made it clear this wasn't a momentary lapse. It was an ongoing affair. The congregation erupted, voices raised in shock and outrage. Someone screamed. Sophia collapsed into her maid of honor, sobbing. You fool! Helena shouted at me. You sick, paranoid fool. Am I paranoid? I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. Their voices, crystal clear from 2 nights ago. We can't keep doing this. 2 more days. After the wedding, we'll figure it out. What about Sophia? What about her? The silence that followed was deafening. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Sophia pulled away from her maid of honor and looked at her mother with eyes full of devastation. Mom? Helena's mask finally slipped. Sophia, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with my fiancé? That you've been lying to me for months? Sophia's voice rose with each word. That you've been destroying my life while I plan my wedding? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. Sophia turned to Nolan, her face streaked with makeup and tears. How long? He couldn't meet her eyes. Sophia, how long? Since March, he whispered. The math hit her like a physical blow. Before you proposed, before we got engaged, before... She stopped, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. I stepped forward. There's one more thing. Helena's face went gray. Elliot, please. The baby isn't Nolan's. Every eye in the congregation turned to me. Sophia's mouth opened in shock. According to the DNA test Helena had done last week, the baby is mine. I looked directly at my wife. Isn't that right, Helena? That's why you've been so supportive of this wedding. You needed Nolan married to Sophia so no one would question why you're pregnant with his child. Helena's legs gave out. She sank into her chair, her face buried in her hands. You're all insane, Nolan said, backing away from the altar. This whole family is insane. That's when I lost control. 22 years of faithful marriage. 22 years of working overtime to pay for Helena's dreams, supporting her business, trusting her with our finances and our daughter's future. 22 years of believing I'd married my best friend. I grabbed Nolan by his perfect suit jacket and threw him into the flower arch. The arch collapsed in an explosion of roses and baby's breath. Nolan went down hard, rolling through the scattered petals and ribbon. The wooden frame caught him across the ribs, and he gasped for breath as I advanced on him. Dad, stop! Sophia screamed, but I was beyond hearing. Nolan scrambled to his feet, his tuxedo stained with dirt and flowers. Get away from me, you psycho! Psycho? I backed him toward the tree line, my fists clenched. You steal from people, you seduce my wife, you convince my daughter to marry you while you're planning to abandon her, and I'm the psycho? He swung at me, caught me across the jaw with enough force to snap my head sideways. The taste of blood filled my mouth, and something primitive and violent took over. I tackled him into the pine trees. We went down together, crashing through the underbrush. He was younger, but I was bigger, and I had 22 years of rage fueling my punches. Stop it! Both of you! Stop it! Helena was screaming behind us, but she sounded far away. Nolan managed to roll on top of me, his hands going for my throat. You ruined everything, you son of a witch! I kneed him in the stomach and threw him off. I ruined everything! I ruined everything! We staggered to our feet, circling each other like animals. His perfect hair was wild, his jacket torn. Crimson ran from his nose, and one eye was starting to swell. You want to know what I ruined? I punched him again, this time in the gut. He doubled over, gasping. I ruined your plan to steal my wife, my daughter, and my money. I ruined your chance to disappear after the wedding with everything you could carry. You don't know what you're talking about. Marcus Webb sends his regards. Nolan's face went white. You called Marcus? I called everyone. Every person you've stolen from, every woman you've left pregnant and alone, every business partner you've screwed over. They all want to know where you are, Nolan. And now they know. He came at me again, desperate now. But he was tired and hurt and fighting someone who had nothing left to lose. I caught his fist and twisted his arm behind his back, driving him to his knees. That's enough. Miles appeared beside us, a broken chair leg in his hands. For a second, I thought he was going to punch me. Instead, he brought it down across Nolan's shoulder blade. The crack was audible even over the chaos from the wedding guests. Nolan screamed and pitched forward into the dirt. "Stay down," Miles warned him, "or the next one goes across your skull." I stepped back, breathing hard, my knuckles red. The guests had formed a circle around us, some crying, some filming with their phones, all of them staring like we were a car accident they couldn't look away from. Sophia stood at the edge of the crowd, her wedding dress dirty and torn, her makeup streaked down her face. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, hatred. "Are you satisfied?" she asked. "Is this what you wanted?" Before I could answer, she turned and ran toward the cabin, her train dragging behind her through the scattered flowers and overturned chairs. Helena started to follow her, but I caught her arm. "Let her go. Don't you dare touch me." She jerked away, her face twisted with fury. "Don't you dare touch me after what you've done." "After what I've done?" The words came out as a roar. "I wasn't the one sneaking around with my daughter's fiancé. I wasn't the one planning to destroy our family. You destroyed it yourself the minute you decided to humiliate us in front of everyone we know. You humiliated yourselves. I just made sure everyone could see it." Someone in the crowd had called 911. I could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. Miles grabbed my arm. "We need to go," he said quietly. "No." I looked around at the faces staring at us. Family. Friends. People who'd known us for years. I'm not running. The police cars pulled into the driveway, their lights flashing but sirens quiet. 3 officers got out, taking in the scene with the practiced calm of people who'd seen everything. "What's the situation here?" the lead officer asked. Everyone started talking at once. The guests, Helena, Nolan from where he sat, clutching his shoulder. A cacophony of accusations and explanations that painted me as the villain in my own story. But I didn't care anymore. I'd done what I set out to do. The truth was out. The wedding was ruined. Helena and Nolan's plan was in shambles. The officer approached me. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us." "He attacked me." Nolan struggled to his feet, supported by his best man. "I want to press charges." I looked at him, this man who'd been willing to destroy my family for money and sex and felt nothing but disgust. "Press charges?" I said. "I don't care." The officer stepped between us. "Sir, you have the right to remain silent." "Wait." Helena's voice cut through the noise. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood in her ruined navy dress, her perfect hair disheveled, mascara streaming down her face. "Don't arrest him." "Ma'am?" I said, "Don't arrest him. We're not pressing charges." Nolan spun toward her. "What are you talking about? He broke my ribs. And you broke my daughter's heart." "I think we're even." Helena looked at me with something that might have been respect. "Let him go." The officer looked confused but relieved. Domestic disputes were messy, and this one was messier than most. "If no one's pressing charges, we can't arrest anyone. But I strongly suggest you all separate for the rest of the day. Let things cool down." The crowd began to disperse. Guests collected their purses and their shock and their stories to tell at dinner parties for years to come. The caterers packed up untouched food. The florist gathered the scattered remains of the arch. Miles helped me to a chair, pressing a towel full of ice against my swollen knuckles. "That was either the stupidest thing you've ever done or the smartest." "I don't know yet." Mom appeared beside us, her face grim. "Where's Sophia?" "Inside." "She needs you, Elliot. She hates me." "Right now, yes, but she needs you." I found my daughter in the master bedroom, still in her wedding dress, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The room smelled like her perfume and broken dreams. "Sophia?" She didn't look up. "Are you happy now?" I sat down beside her, careful not to touch. "No, I'm not happy. You ruined my wedding. Your fiancé and your mother ruined your wedding. I just made sure you found out before you signed the marriage certificate. I loved him. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know. I wanted to marry him. I wanted to have his baby and grow old with him and be happy. He was never going to give you that, sweetheart. He was using you. She finally looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. How long have you known? I saw them together Tuesday night. I've been investigating ever since. Why didn't you tell me then? Would you have believed me? She was quiet for a long moment. No, I wouldn't have. I'm sorry it had to happen this way. I'm sorry I couldn't find a way to protect you from this. I'm pregnant, Dad. What am I supposed to do now? You're going to have a baby. You're going to love that baby more than anything in the world. And you're going to be a better parent than I was. You're a good parent. A good parent would have seen this coming, would have protected you better. She leaned against me then, her head on my shoulder like when she was little and had nightmares. What happens now? Now you get out of that dress, we pack up and go home. And tomorrow we start figuring out how to put the pieces back together. What about Mom? I thought about Helena, probably sitting somewhere surrounded by the wreckage of her own choices. I don't know about your mother. Do you still love her? The question hung between us. Did I? After everything? After the lies and the betrayal and the calculated cruelty of what she'd done? I love who I thought she was, I said finally. But that person doesn't exist anymore. Sophia nodded against my shoulder. I know the feeling. The drive home to Charlotte took 3 hours in silence. Sophia slept in the passenger seat, exhausted from crying. In the rearview mirror, I could see Helena following us in her car, alone. Nolan had disappeared sometime during the police questioning, probably to find an urgent care clinic and a lawyer. Miles had stayed behind to clean up the cabin and return the rental equipment. Take care of the kid, he'd told me before we left. She's going to need you. At home, Sophia went straight to her old room and shut the door. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by wedding gifts that would need to be returned, and tried to figure out what came next. Helena arrived an hour later. I heard her car in the driveway but didn't get up to help with her bags. She came through the front door like she belonged there, which technically she still did. We hadn't talked about divorce yet. We hadn't talked about anything. How is she? Helena asked, setting her suitcase by the stairs. How do you think? I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you. The word surprised me. I don't feel anything for you at all anymore, and that's worse than hate. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Elliot, are you really pregnant? Yes. Is it his? A long pause. Yes. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? Don't lie to me anymore, Helena. We're past that now. How long have you been planning to leave me for him? She sank into the chair across from me, looking older than her 44 years. Since April? Before or after Sophia brought him home? After. I met him at Easter dinner, remember? He was charming, handsome, ambitious. Everything you never were. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. I worked 60-hour weeks to support your business. I paid for Sophia's college, your mother's medical bills, this house, and you resented every penny of it. Don't pretend you didn't. I never resented it. I resented you taking it for granted. I never took anything for granted. You took me for granted. For 22 years. She was quiet for a moment, studying her hands. When did you become so bitter? When did you become so selfish? I'm not selfish. I'm realistic. We haven't been happy for years, Elliot. We've been going through the motions, staying together out of habit. I was happy. Or I thought I was. Turns out I was just naive. So what now? You want a divorce? I already filed the papers. Her head snapped up. What? Friday morning before the wedding. The assets are protected. The house is in my name only, and you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You can't do that. I already did. Check your accounts if you don't believe me. She grabbed her phone, fingers flying over the screen. The color drained from her face as she accessed our joint accounts and found them empty. Where's the money? Somewhere you can't touch it. That's illegal. You can't hide assets in a divorce. I'm not hiding them. I'm protecting them. There's a difference. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight this. Good luck. Your boyfriend just destroyed your credibility as a witness. and I have documentation of every lie you've told in the past 6 months." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You've changed?" "No." I finally woke up. "What about Sophia? What about the baby? What about them? They need stability, security, a family. They have family, they have me. And me. Do they? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were willing to sacrifice both of them for a chance to run away with a con man. Nolan isn't. Nolan is exactly what I said he is. A criminal who's been using you the same way he's used everyone else in his life. The only difference is you were willing to pay with your daughter's happiness instead of your own money." Helena stood up abruptly. "I need to talk to Sophia. She doesn't want to see you." "She's my daughter. Act like it." She headed for the stairs, but I caught her arm. "Helena, if you upset her right now, if you try to justify what you did or blame anyone else for your choices, I will make the rest of your life very difficult. Do you understand me?" She jerked away from my grip. "Don't threaten me." "It's not a threat. It's a promise." She climbed the stairs with the dignity of a queen heading to the guillotine. I heard her knock on Sophia's door, heard muffled voices, then silence. 5 minutes later, she came back down alone. "She won't talk to me." "Give her time." "How much time?" "I don't know. Maybe years, maybe never. This is your fault." If you hadn't made that scene at the wedding, if I hadn't made that scene, she'd be married to a criminal who was planning to disappear after the honeymoon. She'd be alone, pregnant, and financially ruined. At least now she knows the truth. The truth isn't always better. It is for Sophia. Helena picked up her purse and headed for the door. "I'm going to a hotel." "Good. This isn't over, Elliot." "Yes, it is. It's been over for months. I was just too stupid to see it." After she left, I sat in my empty house and listened to the silence. Upstairs, Sophia was dealing with the ruins of her life. Across town, Helena was probably calling lawyers and making plans. And somewhere out there, Nolan was probably already working on his next con. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning brought reporters. I discovered them when I went out to get the newspaper and found 3 vans parked across the street, their occupants drinking coffee and pointing cameras at my house. Apparently, someone at the wedding had posted video of the fight on social media, and it had gone viral. Mr. Stryker, a blonde woman in a red suit, approached my driveway. Channel 7 News. "Can you comment on yesterday's wedding incident?" I went back inside without a word and closed the curtains. "Dad?" Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas. "There are people outside." "Reporters?" "They'll get bored and leave." My phone's been ringing all morning. Friends, co-workers, random numbers. Everyone wants to know if the video is real. "What are you telling them?" "Nothing. I turned it off." She poured herself coffee with hands that shook slightly. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" The question covered so much ground. Financially, emotionally, legally, practically. I wasn't sure I had an answer for any of it. "We're going to figure it out," I said instead. "I called in sick to work. I can't face people asking questions. Take as much time as you need. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a single mother. I don't know how to pay for a baby on my teacher's salary. I don't know how to trust anyone ever again." I set down my coffee and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She'd lost weight in just 2 days, her face drawn with stress and sleepless nights. But there was something else there, too. Something that reminded me of myself at her age, when I'd had to figure out how to take care of my mother after my father died. Strength, hidden under the fear and the hurt, but there. "You're stronger than you think," I told her. "I don't feel strong. Neither did I when your grandfather died. I was 19, working part-time, trying to finish school and take care of Mom. I thought I was going to fail at everything. But you didn't." "No, I didn't." "And neither will you." She was quiet for a moment, staring into her coffee. "Did you really love Mom?" "Yes. Very much." "What happened to that love? Where does it go when someone betrays you like that?" I thought about it. "I think it transforms into something harder, more careful, but it doesn't disappear completely." "Will I ever be able to love someone again?" "Yes, but you'll be smarter about it." "Promise?" "Promise." The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Stryker? I'm David Chen, attorney for Helena Stryker. I need to discuss the divorce proceedings with you. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. What about them? My client feels the asset transfers you made were done in bad faith and constitute financial fraud. She's prepared to file criminal charges unless you're willing to negotiate. Tell your client she's welcome to try. I have documentation of every transaction, all done through legitimate channels with proper legal authority. Mr. Stryker, I don't think you understand the seriousness of... I understand perfectly. Your client is pregnant with another man's child and wants me to pay for it. The answer is no. There's also the matter of your attack on Mr. Reeds, who chose not to press charges. Next, Mrs. Stryker is requesting temporary spousal support and half of all marital assets. She can request whatever she wants. The answer is still no. Mr. Stryker, if this goes to court, then it goes to court. I have video evidence of her infidelity, financial records of her boyfriend's criminal history, and witness testimony from our daughter. How do you think that's going to play in front of a judge? The lawyer shifted his briefcase to his other hand. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss a settlement. There's nothing to discuss. She cheated, she lied, she tried to destroy our family for a con man. She gets nothing. What about your daughter? Don't you think she deserves to have both parents in her life? I looked back at Sophia, who was listening from the kitchen doorway. My daughter deserves parents who put her needs first. 1 out of 2 isn't bad. After the lawyer left, Sophia joined me on the porch. The reporters were still across the street, but they'd stopped approaching the house. Was that about the divorce? Helena wants money. Are you going to give it to her? No. Good. The vehemence in her voice surprised me. After what she did, she doesn't deserve anything. Sophia, I know you think I should forgive her eventually, that she's my mother, and I'll regret cutting her out of my life. But Dad, what she did wasn't just cheating, it was calculated, planned. She was willing to let me marry a criminal to cover up her own affair. I know. The baby I'm carrying is going to grow up without a father because she chose her own happiness over mine. The baby you're carrying is going to grow up with a mother who's strong enough to put family first. That's more than a lot of kids get. She leaned against the porch railing, one hand unconsciously resting on her still flat stomach. I keep thinking about what you said yesterday, about the baby deserving better. It does. And it's going to get better. From you. What if I'm not good enough? You're already better than both your parents. You're honest. You put other people's needs ahead of your own. You work hard and you don't quit when things get difficult. How do you know I won't quit? Because you're here. Because instead of running away or falling apart, you're asking the hard questions and making the hard choices. That's not quitting. That's fighting. She smiled for the first time since the wedding. I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. 3 weeks later, Helena moved out. She came on a Tuesday morning while Sophia was at work and I was at the office, bringing a moving truck and 2 men who loaded her belongings with military efficiency. I came home to find half-empty closets, missing furniture, and a note on the kitchen counter. Elliot, I'm taking what's mine. The lawyer will be in touch about the rest. We need to talk about Sophia and the baby. This isn't over. But it felt over. The house felt lighter somehow, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted. I found myself whistling while I made dinner, something I hadn't done in months. Sophia came home to find me rearranging the living room to fill in the gaps where Helena's things had been. She's really gone, she said, not quite a question. Really gone? How do you feel about that? I considered the question seriously. Relieved, not sad, not heartbroken. I think I did my heartbreaking weeks ago. Now I'm just ready to move forward. What about her baby? That was the question I'd been avoiding. Helena was 4 months pregnant with Nolan's child. Legally, I had no responsibility for it. Emotionally, it was more complicated. What about it? Are you going to be involved? I mean, technically, it's going to be my half-sibling. Do you want to be involved? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me hates that baby for what it represents. But another part of me thinks it's not the baby's fault its parents are awful people. We don't have to decide anything right now, but we will have to decide eventually. Eventually, not today. 2 days later, Miles called with news about Nolan. He skipped town, Miles reported. Left Asheville the day after the wedding. Word is he's headed back to Florida, where he's got warrants waiting. What kind of warrants? Fraud, mostly. Turns out our boy Nolan's been busy. He's wanted in connection with a real estate scam down in Miami. Something about selling condos that didn't exist to elderly investors. Helena doesn't know. If she does, she's not acting like it. My sources say she's been calling around looking for him. Apparently, he's not returning her messages. I wasn't surprised. Nolan had gotten what he wanted from Helena, a place to hide, access to money, and a cover story that would have worked if I hadn't blown it up. Now that his cover was blown, he had no use for her. What about the pregnancy? What about it? She's on her own now, which is probably for the best, considering what kind of father Nolan would have made. That evening, I told Sophia about Nolan's disappearance. She took the news with the same grim satisfaction she'd shown when Helena's lawyer had been forced to drop the financial fraud charges. So Mom's all alone now. Looks like it. Do you think she'll try to contact us? Probably. Eventually. What will you tell her? That depends on what she wants. What if she wants forgiveness? I thought about that. Forgiveness is earned, not given. If she wants it, she's going to have to prove she deserves it. And if she doesn't try to earn it, then she doesn't get it. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. I answered the door to find my mother standing on the porch, a casserole dish in her hands, and determination in her eyes. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. "Mom, don't mom me." I've been praying about this situation for 3 weeks, and the Lord's been very clear about what needs to happen. She set the casserole on the kitchen counter and turned to face me. "You did the right thing exposing Helena and that boy. But you're in danger of letting righteous anger turn into something uglier." "I'm not angry anymore." "No, you're not angry. You're cold. And that's worse." "Cold?" "You've shut yourself off from any possibility of reconciliation. From any chance of healing this family. Mom, this family can't be healed. Helena made choices that can't be undone. Helena made terrible choices. But that baby she's carrying didn't make any choices at all." I'd been waiting for this conversation. It's not my baby. It's your daughter's sibling. Half-sibling, from an affair. Still family. Mom. Elliot James Stryker, you listen to me. I raised you to be better than this, to put family first, even when family disappoints you. I am putting family first. I'm putting Sophia first. Are you? Or are you using Sophia as an excuse to indulge your own hurt feelings? The question hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. What's that supposed to mean? It means that girl upstairs is going to need all the family she can get. Her mother, her half-sibling, even you. And you're so focused on punishing Helena that you're not thinking about what's best for Sophia and her baby. What's best for Sophia is staying away from people who lie to her and manipulate her. What's best for Sophia is having a father who models forgiveness and grace, not revenge and bitterness. She picked up her purse and headed for the door. Think about it, son, and think about what kind of grandfather you want to be. After she left, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out if she was right. The call came on a rainy Thursday in November. Helena's voice on my work phone, shaky and desperate in a way I'd never heard before. "Elliot, I need your help." "Helena? I'm at the hospital." "Something's wrong with the baby." I looked at the blueprints spread across my desk, the normal problems of load calculations and building codes suddenly seeming trivial. What kind of wrong? Placental abruption. They're doing an emergency C-section. The baby might not make it. "Where's Nolan?" A bitter laugh. "Nolan's been gone for 6 weeks. Apparently he's in jail in Florida." "I'm sorry. Elliot, I know I have no right to ask, but I don't have anyone else. I'm scared." I closed my eyes and heard my mother's voice. "Think about what kind of grandfather you want to be." "Which hospital?" "Presbyterian, labor and delivery. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I found Helena in a hospital gown, being prepped for surgery. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way that reminded me of the woman I'd fallen in love with 23 years ago. "You came," she said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "After everything, yes." The surgeon appeared, mask already in place. "Mrs. Stryker, we need to go now." "Can he come with me?" She reached for my hand. "Please." I squeezed her fingers. "I'll be here when you wake up." The surgery took 47 minutes. I spent them in the waiting room drinking terrible coffee and trying to figure out what I was doing. This wasn't my wife anymore. This wasn't my baby. This wasn't my problem. But it was Sophia's half-sibling. It was family, however complicated that family had become. The surgeon found me reading the same magazine page for the third time. Mr. Stryker, how are they? Your wife is fine. The baby. It was touch and go for a while, but she's stable. 3 pounds, 2 ounces. She'll need to stay in the NICU for several weeks, but her prognosis is good. She? A girl. Have you chosen a name? I realized I didn't know. Helena and I hadn't talked about names. We hadn't talked about anything related to the pregnancy, except how much I resented it. I'll have to ask Helena. She's asking for you. I found Helena in recovery, groggy from anesthesia, but awake. She looked at me with eyes full of tears. Did you see her? Not yet? She's so small, so perfect. Elliot, I know she's not yours, but what's her name? Emma. I wanted to name her Emma. That's a good name. Will you see her? Please? I followed a nurse to the NICU, where Emma lay in an incubator surrounded by monitors and tubes. She was impossibly tiny, her skin translucent, her fingers smaller than matchsticks. But she was breathing, fighting. She looks like Sophia did, I told Helena when I returned to her room. Really? Same nose, same determined expression. Helena smiled through her tears. She's going to need surgery next week, for her lungs. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. The old Elliot would have offered to help immediately. The new Elliot calculated costs and considered consequences. What about insurance? I lost my coverage when the real estate office closed. I've been freelancing, but the office closed. 2 weeks ago, I couldn't keep up with the overhead without the extra income I thought I was going to have. Nolan's money, the money that had never existed. What are you going to do? I don't know. My mother might let me move back home temporarily, but she's not exactly thrilled about the circumstances. I thought about my conversation with Mom, about Sophia, who'd been asking questions about her half-sister for weeks, about the kind of grandfather I wanted to be. The baby needs surgery. I know. And you need help. I know that too. I'm not doing this for you. I know. I'm doing it for Emma. And for Sophia. Helena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. There are conditions. Anything. No more lies, ever, about anything. Okay. You get counseling, real counseling, not just someone to tell you what you want to hear. Okay. And you earn your way back into Sophia's life. I won't force her to forgive you, but I won't stop her if she wants to try. What about your forgiveness? I looked at Helena, really looked at her, for the first time since that night in the cabin. She looked older, worn down by consequences and reality. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that might have been wisdom. Ask me again in a year. I called Sophia from the hospital parking lot. Told her about Emma, about the surgery, about the conversation with Helena. So you're going to help her? I'm going to help Emma. There's a difference. What do you want me to do? Whatever feels right to you. No pressure either way. She was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about what Grandma said, about family. And I think I want to meet her. Emma, I mean. Not Mom, not yet. But Emma didn't choose any of this. No, she didn't. Will you take me to see her tomorrow? Of course. I hung up and sat in my car watching rain streak down the windshield. 6 months ago, I'd thought I knew exactly what my life looked like. A happy marriage, a successful daughter, a grandchild on the way. Simple, predictable, safe. Now I was divorced, estranged from my ex-wife, helping to raise a baby that wasn't mine, and learning to navigate a family that looked nothing like what I'd planned. But as I drove home to tell my pregnant daughter about her newborn half-sister, I realized something surprising. I was happier than I'd been in years, not because my life was easier, but because it was honest. Not because my family was perfect, but because it was real. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, that was enough. I pulled into my driveway as the rain finally stopped. Through the living room window, I could see Sophia waiting for me, her hand resting on her growing belly, ready to hear about the newest member of our complicated, broken, healing family. Tomorrow, we'd go to the hospital together. We'd meet Emma. We'd figure out what came next, but tonight, I was just grateful to be home.